Managing bipolar disorder is of crucial importance in order to maintain and live a successful, balanced life. Learning to manage it is an arduous task, but learning to manage it is paramount in order for us to have successful, balanced lives. And the main issue of struggle, I believe, that many people will face, one that I faced, is that there is no one size fits all solution to managing bipolar disorder. It manifests differently in everybody. It manifests different in terms of scale, severity, the symptoms that one may exhibit. All of these things can be so completely different from one person to another. And of course, we share a lot of commonalities as well. But the point is that the severity, symptoms, and uh, it just can all be so distinct. And it's not healthy, it's not wise, in my view, to categorize all bipolar people in the same area and say what works for one may work for all. Because that would be part whole fallacy. What's true of a part isn't true of a whole. Just because it works for part of the people or it works part of the time, it doesn't mean that it will work for all of the people all of the time. And so in this video, I want to share how I manage my bipolar disorder. I have bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. And that illness has, in many ways, been the bane of my existence these past few years, whether it be the 6-month manic episode, which dealt a myriad of severe consequences to my life, or the depressive period that followed, during which I had to cope with the realities of all that had transpired. What I can say is that I've devised methods over these past few years that have allowed me to manage my bipolar disorder, to mitigate the symptoms, to reduce the severity of the symptoms that I face on any given day. And so, what are those methods that I've used? The methods I've utilized are medication, therapy, and self care. I list medication first because I do regard it as personally the most important thing to my specific case. It may be different for others. And I want to stress right off the bat first is that finding medication that works for you can be very challenging. In my situation, it wasn't like I found the perfect medication cocktail right away. There was a great deal of trial and error where I would try out different combinations and, maybe this one would work, but these ones didn't. And then when I would try new ones, the old one that worked would no longer work, but the new ones did. And so it was trying to find that perfect medication cocktail of mood stabilization, antipsychotic, and antidepressant. You want to get rid of those psychotic symptoms because that's a huge impairment to productivity and to living a stable, successful, balanced life. You want to get rid of those depressive thoughts because you want to be able to be positive and maximize your productivity. And it's hard to do so from a negative state of mind or where you're catastrophizing about the past and trying to project it onto your future and saying that it's going to dictate your entire present and future, which of course is antithetical to the reality. It's always within our power to enact positive, meaningful changes in our lives. I sincerely believe that. And I sincerely believe that medications have empowered me to do exactly just that. It was medications that pulled me out of the depths of mania and truly saved my life because I was on a downward spiral. I was on a negative trajectory, and there was really no telling where I was going to end up. There were moments during my manic episode where I was highly suicidal. And 20% of people with bipolar disorder do commit suicide. And that's a terrifying statistic. And it's terrifying to me to think that I could have been part of that 20%. I feel like I came close to it in certain periods of time. And so the medication pulled me out of the depths of mania. But in addition to that, it also pulled me out of the abyss of depression. I was immensely depressed coming out of my manic episode. I couldn't believe I said the things I did, that I did the things I did. I was so embarrassed, guilty, and ashamed. And I just wanted to feel normal again. I didn't want things to be perfect. I just wanted to have some sense of normalcy in my life, some sense of social connection on any scale, some sense of purpose, some level of forward thinking to demonstrate that I'm living some kind of meaningful existence, that I'm here for a reason, that I'm not just some ship drifting around in the ocean without a destination and without a crew to man it. And medications were paramount in this area as well, because the medications reduced the severity, the frequency of my depressive symptoms. It reduced the racing thoughts, almost eliminated my racing thoughts. I experience very nominal amounts of racing thoughts these days. I'll still get them at night from time to time, but nowhere near at the level that I did when I first came out of mania, when I was constantly overwhelmed with negative thoughts and negative self-talk. So the medications I would attribute to a significant portion to managing my bipolar disorder, but it's not the only thing. A second component of this is therapy. Therapy, I feel like, can yield different levels of positive outcomes to different people, and different types of therapy can be more effective for different types of people. I've experienced just about every type of therapy you could imagine. I've done one-on-one therapy with a number of different therapists throughout my life. I've done in-person group therapy where I do 6 hours worth of group sessions throughout the day. And I've done online therapy groups where I meet with people from around the world, and we share our experiences and try to learn from each other's experiences. So I've been all over the block when it comes to therapy and the different mediums of therapy. And what I found with myself is they're all effective for me to a degree, to an extent. They're definitely not an alternative to medication for me. They're not going to get rid of my psychotic thoughts. They're not going to get rid of my depression in the way that medication can be empowering and do so. But it can help enhance the effectiveness of my medications. It can make me feel even less depressed, and in addition to that, make me feel even more motivated. It can make me feel less psychotic, and in turn make me feel even more rational. And so there's a number of beneficial components to therapy. And there's definitely a big difference between one-on-one and group format and in-person and online. I won't spend too much time talking about that, but what I'll say is when you're doing the one-on-one, it's a lot easier to develop a relationship with the person. And if there's someone who knows what they're doing, then it's someone you'll hopefully feel very comfortably opening up to. And in doing so, they can then offer the best advice possible. My last therapist, I enjoyed a lot. I unfortunately don't have her anymore because she left the company. And the company actually held like a job fair trying to get more therapists hired, and nobody showed up to the job fair. So as of today, I am still without a therapist. But I made up for it by doing therapy through different mediums. And one of the mediums I've utilized is online group therapy. With online group therapy, you might not have relationships that are as close as you would with a person one-on-one that you meet with in person, or that you meet with even one-on-one through the computer or phone. But you still are experiencing those main components of therapy where you get things off your chest. You listen to other people share their experiences and what they've learned and their success stories, and you speak with people who are really down in the rut, and being able to share an experience of yourself that then helps that person is just it's such a miraculous feeling. It's so intrinsically rewarding to know that what you shared helped someone else. And that's a huge part of why I make this content. It's because I know there's people out there who relate. I know there's people out there who find strength in my story. And I know there's people who are in a better position than me who look back and see themselves. I know there's people who are in a worse position than me who look at me and see how far they can come. I'm evidence that there's hope. I'm not in the perfect state right now. I'm not in the worst state right now. I'm kind of just in the middle, taking things one day at a time. And so that's the second component of how I manage my bipolar disorder. The third piece to this puzzle is self-care. Now, self-care is especially going to look drastically different for every person. And you could make a 50-hour video talking about different self-care techniques. You could go longer than that because there's just so many. And like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. But I'm going to share my self-care techniques and why they're so helpful to me. One of them is playing video games and hanging out with my friends on Call of Duty. And the reason why that's a self-care technique that's effective for me is it satisfies one of my basic human desires, which is a sense of belonging. And that other human desire, a sense of peer approval. Social connection is of paramount importance to living a successful, happy life, whether you're extroverted or introverted. I believe that anyhow. That's my viewpoint. And I say that as someone who's an introvert, as someone who more often than not would prefer to be alone. I don't mind being alone. In fact, I oftentimes enjoy being alone. But I still have learned over the years that I need some degree of social connection in my life in order for me to be happy and live my life to its fullest extent. So Call of Duty with friends is one avenue that I use in my self-care routine. Another one is reading. Now, it's been said that knowledge is power. With reading, you're presented with the power to take yourself and explore your mind, to discover an entire new world out there around you, to realize and recognize that the world does not revolve around you. That just because the page that you're on and your chapter of life is negative, that it doesn't mean that's the case everywhere. You can look to a different page. And what you learn in many stories and many books is that there's lots of rises and there's falls, and there's rises and there's falls. There's the rising points, the peaks, the climaxes. And so life is not linear, and I feel like reading teaches that to a very significant extent. Right now, I'm reading 1984. I haven't been assiduously reading to the degree that I have in the past, but the fact I'm reading it all, I think, says a lot. And so I'm working on that book right now. After that, I'm probably going to be reading through Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And then I also have a biography about Ted Kennedy that I will be reading. So I have books selected and lined up and prepared, ready for me to go. And, I may change the order in which I do ones. I might find another book on the shelf at Salvation Army and just be like, oh, you know what? I want to read this one next. That might happen. That's definitely happened with me before. So reading books, very empowering and a fantastic way to manage bipolar disorder. Another component to my self-care routine, and this one is so important, that's going to the gym. Going to the gym induces an endorphin rush. Cardio, aerobic exercises, lifting, all of these things have a wide array of benefits on your body and your mind. Chemical changes literally happen when you go to the gym. It's been said before, and this is a quote that I hold very dear to my heart, that if the effects of exercise could be prescribed in a bottle, it would be the most effective antidepressant in the world. Isn't that just like a liberating quote? To know that something that's within your power can be so transformative for the positive in your life. I know that going to the gym is the key that will unlock many of the positive components of my future, that will allow me to be healthier in body and mind, both of which are integrally important to me succeeding once I return to college, succeeding in law school, succeeding in the workforce, succeeding in my career, and whatever else the future may hold. So in this video, I just wanted to share the various methods I've devised over the years and my experiences battling bipolar disorder that have helped me manage my bipolar disorder. And the reason I made this video is I think that other people may find it beneficial to hear what works for me. And I think that if anyone else wants to share what works for them, we could get an interesting dialogue going here uh, to discuss the various methods that can be utilized. Because there's so many, they go far beyond what I mentioned. There's meditation, there's taking hot baths, there's going for walks outside in nature, reading outside in nature. It could go on and on. There's so many methods. And I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you found this informative. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. This was Tyler Adolfo.